It's all that anyone can talk about. It's the MJF Chris Jericho steak dinner segment from last night on AEW Dynamite. Now, the storyline between MJF and Chris Jericho continued as both men went out for a steak dinner. Now, it didn't get off to the best start as both men tried to one-up each other. They also ordered the rarest steaks possible from the waitress, Velma, I don't know. They eventually found some common ground as they agreed that Orange Cassidy, a foe for both of those guys, could not get over. And then Le Dinner Debonair changed dramatically as Le Champion and MJF suddenly broke into a modified version of Me and My Shadow, complete with backup dancers and other things you would associate with a Broadway musical of sorts. The song obviously was most famously sung by the Rat Pack in the 1960s. Now, Chris Jericho, after the show, he actually spoke to the crowd at AEW Dynamite, spoke about some details about how Le Dinner Debonair came together with the crowd after Dynamite went off the air. He told fans at Daly's Place that he and MJF finished filming the segment around 2 a.m. Wednesday morning, and that it was only finished 22 minutes before it aired. Now, This segment has caused quite a bit of controversy, to say the least, amongst the wrestling community, online, social media. There have been numerous people criticizing the segment, saying that it was ridiculous, over the top, it wasn't pro wrestling. Then there have been some people who have been very, very, they've a high amount of praise put on the segment, saying it was bold, unique, and creative. Now, I thought, considering the circumstances here, I would give my opinion. That's what we do on this channel. We give opinions, and opinions are just as valid as anyone. Anyone's opinion is totally valid and welcome on this channel. So for me, I'll be totally upfront. For me, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy the segment. Now, I didn't hate it by any means. I'm not going to go on a rant and a rave about how AEW is killing the business, how Chris Jericho is killing the business, how MJF, I don't know what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that, because I didn't hate it, and I've seen the amount of hate that some people have had for that segment. I have so much hate for that segment, the people that didn't like it, but I'm not going to do that. What I will say is I didn't like it. I didn't like the segment. It wasn't for me. For me, it was too far into the entertainment, the comedy side of things, shall we say, and you know, it just wasn't for me. That's all I can say, really. It just wasn't for me. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean that it wasn't for me? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Your opinion is just as valid as mine or anyone else's. Or whether it's Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez, Sean Ross Sapp, Jim Cornette, MJF, or even Chris Jericho himself. If you liked it and you enjoyed it, that's brilliant. That's fantastic, because that was the purpose of the segment. The segment was meant to entertain you. That's the whole reason for it. The whole reason of that segment was to entertain you, make you laugh, make you enjoy what you were watching. If it did that, that's fantastic. A lot of people thought it was hilarious. A lot of people thought it was creative and the best thing that they'd ever seen. That's awesome. That is awesome, because if that's the case, it achieved exactly what it was meant to do. Now, I can see both sides to this one. I really can. For me, that segment last night encapsulates everything that is modern professional wrestling, whether you like it or not. Modern professional wrestling has evolved from what many fans were used to seeing, myself included. If you grew up in the 90s or the 80s or the early 2000s, modern pro wrestling has evolved. The in-ring style has changed into more high spots, flashier moves, and in some cases, almost a choreographed routine. If you see some of the New Japan matches with the likes of Will Ospreay, and there are highly choreographed spots in there. That's just pro wrestling in 2020. And I don't have a problem with that. I really don't have a problem with that at all. If anything, you go back through history, people have said the same thing during the 2000s. They said the same thing in the 90s with the likes of Shawn Michaels. Oh, it's too many high spots, over-the-top stuff. People said the same in the 1980s with the emergence of Hulkamania and Vince McMahon and sports entertainment. Oh, they're taking it away from what pro wrestling is. It's cartoonish, it's over-the-top. People will always complain about wrestling evolving. People will always complain about things changing from what they like. Wrestling evolves. Wrestling evolves, and it always will evolve. And last night's segment with MJF and Chris Jericho is just more evidence of wrestling's evolution. That's just what it is. Now, myself personally, again, I didn't really like it. It wasn't for me. My professional wrestling that I prefer I prefer it to at least appear to be legitimate. We know it's a work. We know it's a work. We know that what we're seeing isn't real in terms of an actual contest, but it's meant to be a simulated contest, and you want to have that suspension of disbelief. You want to believe that maybe there is a part of it that is real and all that sort of stuff. For me, I like promos, I like gritty stories, I like hard-hitting matches, I like characters that are somewhat believable, and I don't mind the over-the-top stuff. I really don't mind the over-the-top stuff. Chris Jericho has been over the top for the last 18 months, and I think he's been doing the best work of his career. I really do, and I've loved every second of Chris Jericho in AEW. This isn't me saying, oh, I hate Chris Jericho, I hate what happened last night, because I don't. I think Chris Jericho has been fantastic. I think he is their MVP of AEW. If it wasn't for Chris Jericho, I think AEW struggles to really lift off like they have over the last 12 months. And in professional wrestling, suspension of disbelief is so important. Suspension of disbelief is something that you have to overcome. And you have to overcome suspension of disbelief with every TV show that you watch, quite frankly. Every film, everything that you watch, you know what you're watching isn't real. So there has to be this element of suspension of disbelief that you have to overcome. I just think that a choreographed musical number is just a step too far for me, out of my taste, and it's just out of that realm of reality that I don't like. And it just wasn't for me. It doesn't mean the segment was bad. It doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It doesn't mean I hated it, because I didn't hate it. And I've watched it a couple of times, and I think it was a well put together segment. I do. And again, there's facets of the audience that I think loved that, and that's fantastic. It just wasn't for me, and I'm not going to be one of those people, and maybe that means I won't get the views for this video. Maybe it will mean that I don't get the notoriety online that some people are obviously looking for when they bash any professional wrestling. I'm not going to rant and rave and go, oh, it was terrible, Chris Jericho's terrible, MJF's terrible, AEW killing the business, because they're not. I just didn't like the segment. I think, personally, if I was doing the segment, I think you have MJF and Chris Jericho, two of maybe the two best talkers in AEW right now. I'd have presented it differently. I'd have had them just sitting at the table, having the steak dinner, and doing a back and forth promo. Now, would that have been as exciting and as talked about as this Ladina Debonair segment? Maybe not. And maybe that's why they did it. I would have been fine with them just doing humorous comedy bits and eating their steak at the table. That would have been a fine segment for me. Now, maybe I'm slightly skewed when it comes to this, because I hate musicals with a passion. They really don't do it for me, so I certainly don't want to see musicals when I'm watching my pro wrestling. But some people like musicals, and some people like pro wrestling, so they would have loved that segment last night. Maybe that's why I didn't like the segment too. Now, I think another important factor here, and this is again going to be a controversial thing, because I've mentioned it on Twitter and I've already got responses about it, and I don't want to turn this into a WWE versus AEW thing, because we get enough of that. We get enough of that every Thursday when the ratings come out between NXT and AEW. We get enough of that, we've had enough of that over just the last 12 months alone, let alone what's going to happen in 3-4 years time with this. I don't want to turn it into an AEW versus WWE thing, but I do think it's important to mention, if that segment was presented by WWE on Raw or SmackDown, people would be all over it. And there is a pocket of people on social media and online, the people that are saying, oh, that was the best segment I've ever seen last night. If it was presented on Raw and SmackDown, they would be saying, what a terrible segment, creative, Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard. I would be the same person. But I've got to be honest, and I'm criticising the presentation on AEW too, and just as I would for the WWE. It wasn't a segment for me. But there is a group of people, they would be all over it, they would say it was awful, you'd get the Chris Jericho meme, a stupid idea from bad creative, you would get all of that. You just would. And I know that talking about it like that upsets some people. Go, no, we wouldn't, or you're just a WWE guy, you're just defending WWE. I'm really not. I'm really not a WWE guy. I'm not a WWE guy, I'm not an AEW guy, I'm not an Impact guy, I'm not a Ring of Honor guy. I just like professional wrestling, and I like what I like, and I like what I don't like. And I didn't like that segment last night. That's it. And if WWE did a version of that, and to be honest, they did earlier this year when they had those segments with the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits. Now, it wasn't exactly the same. I know that we didn't have a Broadway musical number like we did last night on Dynamite, but those sort of similar comedy segments, I criticised them. I didn't really like them. And it's the same last night. I didn't really like that segment. And it's not because WWE did it that I hated it, and it's not because AEW did it that I hated it. I just didn't like the segment. It's the same as that. And as I mentioned, there is a pocket of people, there is a group of people on social media and online that because it was AEW, because it was MJF, because it was Chris Jericho, they just love it regardless. And it was brilliant. And I do think those group of people, not everyone, and this is probably a minority, but I think those people aren't being objective. I think you have to be objective when you come to taste in pro wrestling. You have to be objective in saying that just because one company does it and you hate it and then another company does it, you like it, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair. Now, regardless of if you liked it or not though, regardless if I liked it, regardless if you liked it, people are talking about it. We're doing this video because people are talking about it, which shows that they did their job and the demigod strikes again. I have no doubts that Chris Jericho and AEW will win the ratings war again tonight. I have no doubts about that, and it'd be interesting if they do release the quarter hours for that. I'm sure Dave Meltzer or someone else will, but that was just my opinion. I thought it was important just to, again, this is all about opinion. Pro wrestling is all about opinion. That's all it's all about here. So what did you think? This is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on last night's Ladina Debonair segment between MJF and Chris Jericho? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys and chatting about pro wrestling here on the channel. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button as well. It really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.